Monopoly money has crashed entire friendships, and the game's designer knew exactly how it would. The Parker brothers released Monopoly in 1935 during the Great Depression. People were starving, banks were collapsing, unemployment hit 25%, and Charles Darrow sold a board game where you get rich by buying property and crushing your opponents into bankruptcy. Here's the trick: Monopoly wasn't an escape from economic reality, it was a laboratory for it. Exhibit 1: the game models scarcity exactly as real economies do. There's a fixed amount of money in play, $15, $140 per player to start. That's not arbitrary, it's a ceiling. Once that money circulates through rents, property purchases, and taxes, the pool shrinks. The game doesn't print new cash when someone runs low. The bank can't inflate its way out. And here's the trick: that constraint is what creates the entire drama. In real life, when money disappears from circulation, economies contract. Deflation sets in. People hold cash because it becomes more valuable. Nobody spends, nothing gets built. Monopoly replicates this exact mechanism. Watch a late-game board state: players stop buying, they hoard, they negotiate, they become cautious. That's not poor strategy, that's rational behavior in a deflationary system. Exhibit 2: property concentration mirrors real-world wealth inequality. The game doesn't prevent one player from owning everything. In fact, the rules accelerate it. Once someone buys a color set, rents skyrocket. A player landing on boardwalk with a hotel pays $2,000. Early in the game, that's devastating. Late in the game, it's fatal. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. The mechanism is automatic. This isn't a flaw in the design, it's the entire point. Darrow understood something most economists of his era missed: markets naturally consolidate. Without intervention, dominance compounds. One player's early advantage becomes an insurmountable lead. The game teaches what happens when there's no progressive taxation, no wealth redistribution, no regulation. It teaches capitalism in its purest form. Exhibit 3: the bank itself is a player, not a neutral force. The bank sets interest rates, or rather the rules do. The bank controls the money supply. The bank decides what land costs. And here's the trick: the bank always wins if the game goes long enough. Every transaction that passes through the bank, every rent payment, every property sale, slightly favors the institution that controls the ledger. In the real world, this is how central banking works. The Federal Reserve doesn't participate in commerce directly. It sets the rules. It controls the printing press. It decides reserve requirements and discount rates. Every transaction in the economy passes through a system the Fed designed. Monopoly's bank operates on the same principle. It's not playing to win, it's playing to maintain control. Exhibit 4: investment strategy in Monopoly mirrors real portfolio theory. Early players face a choice: buy railroads and utilities for steady income, or gamble on expensive color sets for exponential returns. Railroads generate $200 per pass, reliable, boring, compounding slowly. Boardwalk generates $2,000, but only if someone lands there, only if you own the hotel. Only if you can afford to build it first. This is risk versus reward encoded into cardboard. A conservative investor buys 4 railroads and collects steady rent. An aggressive investor waits, saves, then buys Park Place and Boardwalk, betting that someone will land there and pay catastrophically. The game doesn't judge either strategy. It just rewards whoever reads the probabilities correctly and has the capital to execute their thesis. Exhibit 5: negotiation and leverage. The rules permit trades. A player with 3 color sets can trade a property to prevent an opponent from completing a monopoly. A player with cash can bribe another player to land on a specific space. The game allows these transactions because real economies run on them. Deals happen, alliances form. Power consolidates through voluntary exchange, not just luck. Here's the trick: Monopoly's genius is that it makes invisible economic forces visible. Inflation, deflation, wealth concentration, investment risk, market dominance, these are abstract in textbooks. On the board, they're concrete. You feel them. You lose because of them. You understand them not as theory, but as lived experience. That's why the game has survived nearly 90 years. The game also reveals why friendships collapse during play. It's not because Monopoly is poorly designed. It's because the game is ruthlessly honest. It shows that capitalism, left unchecked, produces winners and losers. It demonstrates that early luck compounds into permanent advantage. It proves that the person who controls the money supply has structural power over everyone else. And most people don't want to see that clearly. Some versions of Monopoly tried to soften this. In certain editions, when a player lands on free parking, they collect accumulated taxes, a redistribution mechanism. The game becomes gentler, friendships survive longer, and nobody learns anything about actual economics. Parker brothers understood that the original rules worked because they were honest about how the world functions. Exhibit 6: the endgame. Monopoly doesn't end when someone wins, it ends when everyone else runs out of money. The final players sit in a hollowed-out economy where one person owns everything and collects all the rents. The last opponents can't move without landing on property they can't afford. They liquidate assets, they declare bankruptcy, they exit the game, and the winner sits alone with a pile of Monopoly money that has no value anymore. This is the economic principle that kills empires. Rome consolidated wealth until the middle class disappeared. The Ottoman Empire taxed so heavily that trade collapsed. The French ancient regime extracted so much that revolution became inevitable. Monopoly compresses this into 3 hours. The game shows that total victory produces a pyrrhic outcome. You've won a game with no other players left to play against. And here's the final trick. Monopoly money has no intrinsic value. It's worthless once the game ends. But for 3 hours, it governs behavior completely. Players make decisions, form allegiances, experience joy and rage, all over tokens that will be sorted back into a box. This mirrors real currency. Money has value only because we collectively agree it does. Once that agreement breaks, the money becomes paper. The game proves that economic systems are human inventions, not laws of nature. They work because people follow the rules. They break when people stop believing in them. They concentrate power because the rules permit it. They generate winners and losers because that's how they're designed. Monopoly teaches this not through lectures, but through the bitter experience of losing everything. For nearly a century, people have played Monopoly thinking it was entertainment. It is, but it's also a financial simulator, an economics textbook, and a warning. The game doesn't judge capitalism. It just shows what happens when you let it run without intervention. And most people, after 3 hours of bankruptcy, finally understand why real economies need rules, redistribution, and limits on concentration. That's the real game being played. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into the hidden economics of systems you thought you understood. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.